A lot of people are under the impression that 2026 is going to be a quiet year for gun owners just because there isn't a new federal ban on the horizon. If you are watching the national news, you might think the coast is clear, but that assumption is dangerous. The reality is that the real action has shifted to the state level, and if you aren't paying attention to local statutes, you could wake up one morning to find yourself on the wrong side of the law without even leaving your driveway. We need to talk about what is actually hitting the books in 2026. This isn't about fear-mongering or guessing what Congress might do. This is about bills and regulations that have already passed and are scheduled to take effect. If you own a standard semi-automatic rifle, specifically the AR or AK platforms, the ground is shifting under your feet in at least 9 states. Let's start with Rhode Island. If you're in New England, this is the one you need to watch. They passed the State Assault Weapons Ban Act, and the major provisions kick in on July 1, 2026. The text of the law targets what they call prohibited firearms, which covers your standard semi-automatic rifles with detachable magazines and features like pistol grips or telescoping stocks.
Now, here is the critical part for owners in Rhode Island. If you already own one of these rifles before that July date, the current law allows you to keep it. You aren't being forced to turn it in. However, the ability to buy, sell, or transfer those firearms inside the state basically evaporates. After July 1st, you cannot sell that rifle to a neighbor or a friend. Your only options are transferring it to a federally licensed dealer or sending it out of state to someone who can legally own it there. If you ignore this and get caught violating these transfer rules, the statutes list penalties up to 10 years in prison and heavy fines. So if you've been thinking about trading something in or gifting a rifle to a family member in-state, the window is closing. Moving over to Colorado, the approach is different. They aren't doing a straight ban on possession, but they are adding a significant hurdle to the purchasing process. Starting August 1st, 2026, the state is implementing a requirement for a firearm safety eligibility card. This applies to most semi-automatic firearms with detachable magazines. In practice, this means the days of walking into a shop, running a background check, and walking out are over for these specific types of firearms. You will need to complete a state-approved safety class, pass a background check just to get the card, and then keep that card renewed every 5 years. It adds time, cost, and another layer of registration to the process. For anything you already own, you're fine, but for any future purchases, that card becomes your ticket at the door.
Then there is California. You might think they have tapped out on new restrictions, but a specific law known as AB 1127 is coming into play on July 1, 2026. This one is interesting because it targets pistols. The state is banning the sale of what they classify as semi-automatic machine gun convertible pistols. Legal experts interpret this as targeting popular models like Glocks that are mechanically capable of accepting illegal auto-sears or switches. The state's logic is that because these guns can be illegally modified, they shouldn't be sold by dealers. If you already own one, you are grandfathered in, but dealers will be barred from selling new ones. The concern here for the broader community is the precedent. If the state can ban a firearm because it could be modified illegally by a third party, that logic can easily be applied to other platforms in the future. New York is another state where the danger in 2026 isn't necessarily a new law, but the enforcement of the old ones. The SAFE Act has been on the books for years, requiring registration of what they define as assault weapons. The issue now is recertification and accuracy. The state is tightening how it tracks these registered firearms. If you registered a rifle years ago and failed to recertify or update your information, the system doesn't view that as a clerical error. It views it as possession of an unregistered assault weapon. We are seeing a move towards stricter audits. If you are in New York and you have a grandfathered rifle, you need to verify your status. Do not assume the paperwork you filed 5 years ago is still good. If you miss a deadline, you expose yourself to felony charges and the loss of your rights. New Jersey and Massachusetts are also expanding their reach, but they are doing it through legal definitions. New Jersey uses language banning guns that are substantially identical to named banned weapons. In early 2026, the state is expected to expand the list of rifles that fall under this definition. A rifle that is compliant on the showroom floor today could be reclassified as prohibited tomorrow if the state decides it shares too many features with a banned model. Massachusetts is using similar copy or duplicate language. The enforcement there is getting aggressive. The risk is that if you buy a rifle that was sold as compliant, but the state later determines it is a copy of a banned action, they treat it as contraband. In Massachusetts, there is serious concern regarding the lack of grandfathering for these newly reclassified items. You need to be extremely careful about what you buy and keep documentation showing exactly what it is. Connecticut is focusing on storage. Starting April 1, 2026, the state is expected to launch a serious audit of their assault weapon registry. If you have a registered item, the law requires it to be stored in a specific manner, locked safe, locked cabinet, or a verified locking device. If law enforcement enters your home for any reason and finds a registered rifle sitting unsecured, that is a criminal offense. It's a simple thing, but it's an easy way to catch a charge if you get complacent. Maryland is set to expand its banned list around October 1, 2026. The reports indicate they are looking to add a batch of newer AR and AK variants that were designed to comply with previous laws. When these updates happen, the state typically gives a 90-day window to move those items out of state or surrender them. If you miss that window, simple possession becomes a felony. Washington State continues to play the long game with training requirements and storage mandates. Every new purchase requires proof of training, and the red flag laws or extreme risk protection orders have been expanded. This makes it easier for a court to order the seizure of firearms based on third-party complaints. So what does this mean for you? If you live in a free state, this might sound like a nightmare from a different planet. But if you live in one of these 9 states, 2026 is a year where you have to be proactive. First, do a real inventory. Write down exactly what you have, make, model, and configuration. Compare that list against the specific text of your state's laws taking effect in 2026. Don't rely on forum posts or what the guy at the counter told you. Read the definitions. Second, check your paperwork. If you are in a registration state like New York or Connecticut, ensure your address and status are current. Don't give them an easy win because you forgot to mail a form. Third, look at your storage. If your state mandates a safe or a lock, use it. It is the cheapest insurance you have against a negligence charge. And finally, if you see the writing on the wall, like the transfer bans in Rhode Island or the list expansions in Maryland, you need to make a decision. Maybe you sell it now while you can. Maybe you move it to a safe location out of state. Or maybe you decide it is time to pack up and leave. The laws are designed to be complex. They rely on you not paying attention. Stay informed, read the actual statutes, and keep your house in order. That is how you stay safe and stay legal.